explaining the 2025 global situation, focusing on difficulties you can see, and focusing on long-term historical trends. All talks are from SU events in 2017, which were amazingly forward-thinking.
Let me ask you a provocative question. One of the things we have a lot of I use the moniker dangerous ideas here. And I'm genuinely curious about this because we haven't had this conversation about how these exponential technologies are going to impact the nation state. Because you've said this eloquently, and I said it and agree. You know, we've got this continuous exponential growth that's almost unstoppable. But we have these factors in society like government. People like waking up in the morning and realizing the world hasn't changed from the night before. We don't like change inherently as humans. But religious institutions and government institutions try and stabilize things. So is the nation state that as we know it today going to be around 20, 30, 40 years from now? What are your thoughts there?
Well, mechanical typewriters are still around.
Yeah.
Horses and buggies are still around.
Just not very used.
Right. So these institutions stick around, but they change their role in our lives. They already have. The nation state is not as profound as it was. Religion used to
dominate,
direct every aspect of your life, minute to minute. It's still important in some ways, but it's much less important, much less pervasive, plays a much smaller role in most people's lives than it did. And the same is true for governments. And we are fantastically interconnected already. There's some issue with the pension funds in Spain, and you know, the economies all over the world feel it, but also react to it and absorb it. Nation states are not islands anymore. They used to be that way, much more so. So we're already much more of a global community. The generation growing up today really feel like world citizens, much more than ever before, because they're talking to people all over the world, and it's not a novelty. I mean, they've grown up that way. So that, you know, we watch news on CNN and so on, and it focuses on certain issues, and yes, they're important, but the kind of disruptive change that both of us talk about is what is really important.
And because the upside potential of these new technologies is so profound, that we have awesome possibilities ahead, right? The abundance that we'll see in solar and in water and in healthcare and in education, this is going to be unbelievable what happens in this next 10, 20 years. But our existing leadership fundamentally don't get it, and that's a problem.
So do you think there's hope for educating those, like taking on with, wow, okay.
No, you cannot. It's like teaching an old dog new tricks. They're too stuck in their old patterns. What you have to do is actually create new leaders.
So it's a bit like the French Revolution?
Yeah, you actually totally need to, but you don't, it doesn't need to be violent.
Yeah, no, I understand.
At the very least, we have generational change, right? But you look at somebody like Vitalik Buterin, right? This is a guy re-architecting the world from the bottom up using completely new technologies. And if you're a 50-year-old banker at the World Bank, you cannot get your head around what's in it.
So pre-mammalian animals that didn't have a neocortex, they had fixed behaviors, but they were very well evolved for their ecological niches. Mammals came along, the first ones were basically rodents, and they could invent new behaviors. Didn't help them that much because the environment changed very slowly. Might take 50,000 years for it to be an environmental change that would require a new behavior. And these non-mammalian animals over that period of time could actually evolve a new fixed behavior. So the mammals that were like this big kind of stayed out of the way for 135 million years. But then something happened. 65 million years ago, there was a sudden catastrophic change to the environment. If you go down to a layer of rock that reflects 65 million years ago, the geologists will explain that that shows a sudden violent change to the environment. And we see it all around the globe. And we call it the Cretaceous extinction event because that's when the dinosaurs went extinct. That's when 75% of all the animal species went extinct. And that's when mammals took over.